asking anyone who has information on this that can assist the police department or assist me and my family in finding the men who have taken my son's life.
Hello everybody, so today we're going to be talking about 26-year-old Army vet Jarvis McIntyre. He went missing last week and was found this past Friday deceased. So you guys, it's being said that Jarvis traveled from St. Louis to San Antonio to visit his sisters for his birthday weekend. So Jarvis was last seen on June 9th, which was a Sunday. He had brunch with his sisters and their friends. He was supposed to return home Monday, but he never showed up. So later that Sunday, the car that he rented through Turo was found abandoned near a park with all of his belongings still inside. So on that Wednesday, Jarvis' family flew into San Antonio to help search for him. They also put up missing person flyers throughout the area. So you guys, sadly on June 14th, which was this past Friday, there was a body that was found in John James Park. The body was identified as Jarvis based off his tattoos. This park was not too far from where his car was found. So you guys, San Antonio Police Department told Jarvis' mother that he had called 911 and that he was seen running through the park Sunday afternoon. Allegedly, whoever this person was that was chasing Jarvis called him a racist. So based off this information, it does sound like this was some type of hate crime. You guys, this story is really crazy. Jarvis went to Texas to celebrate his birthday weekend and he ended up deceased. Like, it's just weird. He's not even from here. So what happened to Jarvis? So I'm just wondering who was chasing Jarvis through that park and why. While this case is still developing, I do want you guys to send prayers to Jarvis' family in the time of need. I will keep you guys updated as soon as any new information comes out. Comment below and let me know you guys' thoughts on this case.
The man behind me's name is Christopher Hope, and he's been sentenced for feeding his diabetic daughter Mountain Dew, leading to her death. He'll spend a minimum of 7 years in prison. Now, they did charge him with
his 4-year-old Mountain Dew. That's wrong.
Involuntary manslaughter, but it still does not defeat the purpose that, like, come on, dude. If your daughter's diabetic, why don't you not give her Mountain Dew? The girl was also only 4 years old and diabetic. That is insane. If this story sounds familiar, it's because it is. Her mother, Tamara Banks, was recently arrested for, being a role in this. I also made a video on her a few weeks ago.
And he got that look on his face like, hey, ain't nothing gonna happen to her. You can give her a little bit.
Back, but now it's his turn. The little girl was found unresponsive inside of the home in January of 2022. She was transported to a hospital in Cincinnati where she was pronounced dead when she got there. She was put on life support, but they pulled the plug 2 days later because she was kind of gone. The judge and all the investigators argued the girl's health was so poor because she didn't visit any doctor since she was born that resulted in her death. On top of them feeding her Mountain Dew. They were mixing formula and Mountain Dew for a 4-year-old. This led to all of her teeth rotting out. She died from ketoacidosis. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always,
it sounded to me like they knew what they was doing. Like, why would you give a 4-year-old that Mountain Dew mixed with the formula? That don't even make sense. And knowing she a diabetic, that's already hard as it is. Like, he should be under the jail. The mama too, and everybody along with it that knew what was going on. That's real serious.
These videos are for informational purposes only.
As per Fox 5 Atlanta, the DJ of Webby, known as T. Gutta, met a terrible fate along with his wife, Kalisha Seddons Dunn. Word on the streets is that authorities were alerted of gunshots at their dwelling in Powder Springs, Georgia, on Sunday, June 9th, 2024. The officers arrived to find the bodies of T. Gutta and Seddons Dunn. In an update from the Powder Springs Police Department, Captain J.W. Holcomb stated, "I can confirm that Notorious Brown committed suicide after killing Kalisha Seddons Dunn by shooting her," he revealed. He went by the name T. Gutta during his performances. This tragedy occurred only hours after T. Gutta took to Facebook to vent about poor working conditions with Webby. Dog, being Webby's DJ...
First of all, it don't matter what he said about Webby. The fact that he took his girl life and then his shows that it had nothing to do with Webby. So they trying to put his name in there just for like some clout or something like that. Because if we just took his own life, it was just because of Webby.
Is like living in hell, he ranted. First off, that man never wants to pay up. And on top of that, he doesn't want anyone around him to shine, not even his own brother. You see why everyone left?
It's like to me that he was just getting some shit off his chest before he took himself out.
Was supposed to just be the tour DJ, but ended up having to be a driver, doctor, security guard, PR rep, babysitter, booking agent, referee, counselor, road manager. All these damn things. Yet this man never showed any appreciation. T. Gutta continued. I did all this work with a smile in front of thousands each night, but inside I was dying. Every time Webby had seizures on planes or stages or in hotels, who was there? Me. Because his family wanted nothing to do with him, and no one else on our team could handle him except for me. Our driver quit because Webby didn't want to pay him, and every time we tried to make money in other ways, he found a way to shut it down.
But neighbors here told us the couple did have children.
Honestly, it's a scary thing to know that this can occur right around the corner from your home that you're raising your kids in.
Haley Moss says it's scary knowing a murder-suicide happened just down the street from her.
Thursday, she was out here and on her phone, and you wave because everybody's so busy. Hey, but just to pull up today and see this is just devastating. Really devastating.
Fellow neighbor Randa Copeland says that was the last time she saw the neighbor who lived at this home on Forest Hill Road alive. Powder Springs police investigators say the woman who lives here was killed by a man before he turned the gun on himself. Police say the man was first taken.
In Powder Springs, that's a good neighborhood too. And for that to happen, I know the neighbors were shocked.
Into the hospital in critical condition, but at last check, police said he wasn't expected to survive. Copeland says she would see the woman often with her kids.
I'm just at a loss of words right now. I'm thinking about the kids. She was really sweet, and I would say a good mother in a sense because I always saw her with her kids playing and getting them for school, things like that. So, but she was a really sweet person.
His father ended his entire family, and then he lived with them for nearly a month. The Tot family spent weeks preparing for Christmas, but then just before the holiday, they disappeared. They should have been at their vacation home in Celebration, Florida, and they actually all were. It was just that Anthony had followed in his father's footsteps and did the unthinkable to his wife and kids. On January 13th, we know officials were checking the house for a fifth time when they saw the missing father just standing there on the front porch. They immediately went up to the house to talk to him, but then he went inside and wouldn't answer the door. These officials then actually made their way in, and they reportedly knew right away what it was that they were smelling. Now, as we know, Anthony was just standing there at the top of the stairs, so police went ahead and asked him where his family was. He then told them that he thought his kids were at a sleepover and that his wife was upstairs sleeping. Officers reportedly even called out to Megan just to see if that was the case, but with no answer, they headed up themselves. In the master bedroom, police would find Megan, but she had 2 8-inch stab wounds to her chest and had clearly been deceased for weeks. They then found her 11 and 13-year-old boys wrapped up on the floor, and tragically, they'd both been stabbed as well. They actually couldn't find Zoe at first because she was so small, but she and the family dog were also buried in just a ton of stuff. That same day, Anthony was taken into custody, with autopsies reporting that his family was suffocated, stabbed, and drugged with Benadryl.
Like, how could somebody do that to somebody that's supposed to be your loved ones? Like, all of them? So you telling me you hated your whole family, you just want to take them all out? Like, that's crazy. I think people take life for granted. Life is too precious just to be taken away like that. Now, I could see if you was defending yourself for somebody trying to take yours, but just to be doing it because you had a bad day or because Timmy didn't clean up his room or wherever the case may be, it really ain't no excuse, man. We need to do better.
He and other family members were interviewed later that week, and everyone realized just how awful he really is. That past year in 2020, Anthony and Megan were texting about how they thought there would be an apocalypse. But around Thanksgiving, Anthony says that they sat the kids down for a meeting about how they all had to die together. He even said their kids agreed with the plan and wanted to meet in the afterlife, so they all decided how they would do it. That his 13, 11, and 4-year-olds helped him to write this letter, and that they wished to have their ashes spread in the ocean. Now over the
So you tell me the 4-year-old sit down there and thought of his plan by himself? Or just with y'all just had a group huddle and the 4-year-old was like, yeah, I want to do this.
The next few days, Anthony says his wife made some delicious cough syrup pies, but that everyone ate them and it didn't work. He said that he and his wife then worked together to kill the kids, and that in the end she, quote, chugged a glass of wine and ended her own life. Anthony also claimed that he'd been trying to do the same thing ever since, but that he couldn't get himself to do it. Now the thing is, to investigators, this family had Amazon boxes ready for Christmas and didn't seem to be preparing for the end of the world. And yes, there definitely was some conversation about an apocalypse with Megan, but the odds were stacking up against her husband. At Anthony's trial, prosecutors would reveal that when he was 4, his dad hired a hitman to kill his mom when he was home to witness it. And they also claimed his life became unmanageable 6 years before when his
See where he got it from then. Seems like some of this stuff be DNA passed down to traits.
wife and kids moved to Florida. The family actually owned 2 houses at the time so he could continue practicing therapy in Connecticut, but by this point, He'd even lost his license. In the end, Anthony literally went to the stand in his own defense, but while he cried and blamed his wife for everything, he was sentenced to life without parole. His father has actually since been released from prison, and they reportedly talk.
If you want to read into a story with a lot of twists and turns, this is one right here for you. So I have followed this story from the very beginning, from the first news story. That there, that's Caitlin Markham, who went missing, who reported her missing, her family, and this guy, her fiance, John Carter. Was he upset? Kind of. Did he show up at all the things and want people to help find his precious missing fiance who left behind all of her stuff? Yeah, he wanted to find her. Did it take them like 11 years to find her body? Yeah. Did he walk around scot-free for 11 years? Yeah, he did. Guilty? Yeah, guilty. Super guilty. Go down the rabbit hole. We can go down the rabbit hole of this whole story, but I have never been happier to see a person admit to being guilty. I'm going to guess because he gets a plea, but I haven't read into that. So there will be a follow-up. But this was a crazy, crazy story.
You're under arrest, man.
Why?
Because I said.
I was right behind you. You almost tried to run me over. Why did you do that?
This officer would fail to turn his body camera on before opening fire on this car,
claiming officer safety, but investigators don't agree with that.
Marcellus and his girlfriend were sitting in a vehicle out in front of her mother's house when they were approached by a Waukegan police officer saying they looked suspicious.
Almost immediately, the officer would say that he knew Marcellus and he had a warrant out for his arrest,
which nobody's been able to confirm that warrant ever existed. Marcellus's girlfriend did get scared and drove off.
It shocked me that he knew Marcellus and he had something against him.
Officer Dante Salinas would catch up to them moments later as she lost control of her vehicle. As Tafara jumped the curb with her car, the officer would open fire.
As her car struck this building, coming to a stop seconds later, both Tafara and Marcellus would be shot and he would end up losing his life.
Salinas said he opened fire because he thought he was going to be hit by their car. Investigators are saying that's not true.
Officer Salinas was fired days later, but it would take 2 years for him to face charges. He's now been charged with this for taking Marcellus's life.
Do you think Salinas should be criminally charged with taking Marcellus's life? Let us know.
Yes, because these officers be abusing their power sometimes. I can understand the job can be dangerous, but sometimes you gotta think and have common sense.
This girl was kept in a box for 7 years. This is Colleen Stan, and she was 20 years old at the time and lived in Eugene, Oregon. In May of 1977, she was traveling from Oregon to Northern California, and she saw herself as a pro at hitchhiking and had actually declined 2 trips on the.
Did she say she declared herself as a pro at hitchhiking?
Particular May Day. Colleen was in Red Bluff, California, and a blue van had actually stopped to offer her a ride, and she noticed that a man was sitting in the front passenger seat was his wife, and they had their child in the back, and since she saw the child, she felt safe. These people that picked her up were anything but safe. The people that picked her up were 32-year-old.
Look at him. They look like they not safe. Look how the wife looking.
Cameron Hooker and his 19-year-old wife, Janice. The pair had been actively looking for a hitchhiker to abduct. Cameron had been having strange fantasies, and Colleen was a perfect victim for it. Colleen had got into the van, and not long after, Cameron had taken a detour into a wilderness region. Colleen was thrown into a 20-pound head box, and she had a knife to her neck. Her head was enclosed in the box, and she wouldn't get any kind of noise, any kind of light, or even fresh air. Once they arrived at Cameron's home, they took Colleen downstairs, and she went through gruesome types of torture. She was electrocuted, burnt, whipped, after being bound to the ceiling by her wrists. Colleen ended up getting the nickname the girl in the box after being imprisoned up to 23 hours a day. Cameron told Colleen that he belonged to a group called The Company, and this was a very strong group that would keep an eye on Colleen as well as her family. Colleen was very scared that if she tried to escape, that the group would go after her family. Once Cameron was able to gain Colleen's trust, they went to go visit her family to make it seem like they were a couple living happily together somewhere else.
How can you gain her trust? So you tell me now she free and she's just going around willingly but not saying anything? Like, we ain't got police, FBI, and all these other people to help you out? They really installed that much fear? That's scary.
Between 1977 and 1984, it had been 7 years that Colleen had been in prison, and Cameron wanted her as a second wife. Janice ended up speaking with Colleen, and she told her that Cameron was never a member of that group, and that while they were together, she was brainwashed by him and she was imprisoned as well. Janice had helped Colleen escape, and Colleen was able to take a bus ride back home. About 3 months later, Janice had reported her husband to the police. Cameron was found guilty, and he's actually still in prison to this day. Both Janice and Colleen have changed their names and are California residents. In 2016, the movie Girl in the Box was made after Colleen's imprisonment for 7 years and is available right now on Tubi.
The terrifying serial killer that inspired the horror movie Scream. In the late summer of 1990, Gainesville, Florida was being absolutely terrorized by a string of brutal murders of college-aged girls. It all started when the bodies of 17-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell were found in their apartment, brutally stabbed to death. Christina had been SA'd and mutilated, and both girls' bodies were posed in a suggestive position. Both girls...
I'll tell you what, man, those killers back in the day was different. They used to do all kind of crazy stuff they victims, didn't they?
Were supposed to start their first year of college the following Monday. The very next day, the body of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt was found inside of her apartment. Life had been taken the exact same way. SA'd, stabbed, mutilated, and then posed. College students in and around Gainesville, Florida were terrified. Classes were meant to start that week. Thousands of students had just left their parents to come to college, and now 3 girls were brutally stabbed to death within 24 hours, and they lived like 2 miles away from each other. It was chaos in Gainesville, Florida. Students were withdrawing their enrollment into college or transferring schools within hours.
I would have did the same thing. It ain't no way that I'm gonna go to a school where all these people just popping up dead. Even if they was women, I still wouldn't do it. I ain't taking those chances. No education is worth my life.
Stores were sold out of padlocks, pepper sprays, tasers, baseball bats, you name it. And what was happening to the young girls in Gainesville, Florida started to make news around the country. Family and friends of college students were calling their loved ones to make sure they were okay. And that's exactly what happened to 23-year-old Tracy Pauls. Tracy was in her apartment when she got a call from a concerned friend. She told her friend, "Hey, I'm safe and I feel safe," because Tracy had a 23-year-old male roommate named Manny Thibodeau. Manny was like 6 foot tall, super strong, really big. He was like a former football player. Tracy felt absolutely safe living with this ginormous man. Tragically, within minutes of getting off the phone call with her friend, the killer broke into their apartment as well, unaliving Manny and then SAing, stabbing, mutilating, and posing Tracy the same way he did
So much for that 6 foot tall football player.
The other girls. Absolutely no one felt safe, and the police were feeling pressure to make an arrest, and they actually did make an arrest the following day. After receiving dozens of tips for the police to look into one particular creepy college freshman at the University of Florida, the police brought in 19-year-old Ed Humphreys into custody. Ed was kind of odd and distant. He had this really bad...
He looked odd. Look how he looking. I don't know if that's how he usually look or is he just drunk or something like that.
bad scarring around his mouth that he actually got in a really bad car accident the year before, but that didn't matter to anyone. Ed looked scary, and people were scared. And despite not even having the same blood type as the killer, Ed was kept in police custody for 10 months. And even after they found the real killer and Ed's name was cleared, Ed Humphreys said that his reputation and his life were permanently altered after being accused of these heinous killings. It was around this time that the investigators actually got a tip that there was a similar unsolved crime to their slayings in Gainesville. A year prior to the slayings in Gainesville, the bodies of 56-year-old Tom Grissom, 8-year-old Sean Grissom, and 24-year-old Julie Grissom were found stabbed to death inside the Grissom home. Julie had been essayed, stabbed, and posed just like the college girls that were murdered in Gainesville. And the connection between the victims in Gainesville and now the Grissom family murder was actually leaked to the public, which led to a tip from a Louisiana local woman who said that she might know who's responsible for all of these deaths. That lady, Cindy, called the investigators and told them that she knew of a 37-year-old man named Danny Rowling. He had a history of being creepy towards women, a large rap sheet of armed robberies, and recently was let out of prison and living a half-mile away from the Grissoms at the time the Grissoms were killed. Cindy also told the investigators that after the Grissom family was stabbed to death, Danny told her husband that he had a problem and he liked stabbing people. Cindy girl, I appreciate you coming forward when you did, but how did you not connect the dots earlier? Cindy also told the investigators that 3 months before the killings in Gainesville, Florida started, Danny left Louisiana and no one knew where he was. So Danny is definitely looking like a really good suspect, but the police had to prove that he was in Gainesville, Florida at the time that these students were being killed. Danny had this history of armed robberies, and a week before the killings started in Gainesville, there was actually an unsolved armed robbery of a bank. The robber got away with a duffel bag full of money, but the bank teller actually booby-trapped the money, so when the robber tried to mess with it, that red dye would explode all over the money and make it worthless. Police actually found that duffel bag full of red stained money discarded in the woods, and with the duffel bag was a tape recorder, and what's recorded on that tape recorder you will never believe. On the tape was a man singing a little song that he had written about being a mystery killer. It was literally
It sounded like he was mad that he ain't getting none of that money. All that money.
Literally a confession right there for the police.
We push play and we hear this guy singing on there.
As soon as the tape starts playing, I hear Danny playing the guitar.
And even more unbelievable, at the end of the recording, the man said his full name, Danny Rowling. When Danny was arrested, at first he claimed that he was innocent.
It sounded like Danny really didn't give a right there.
But he eventually did confess to the killings of all 8 victims. He never expressed remorse or gave a motive for why he did this, but it is said that all of the female victims look strikingly similar to his mother. Danny was sentenced to the death penalty, but first he was able to, given a chance to speak, like speak to the victims, maybe apologize. That's what a lot of people do. Whether or not they accept apologies, that's on the family. But instead of doing any of that, Danny actually stood up and sang a song to his girlfriend.
Rules say I have to give Mr. Rowling an opportunity to have to say. You have anything you want to say, Mr. Rowling?
Well, it's like to me, Danny wanted a contract. He wanted a record deal. All he was fighting for was a record deal.
Sir?
Please, court. Could I address the court?
Sure, say whatever you want to say.
Thank you. I recall the day I first saw you. I reached out to say I love you, but it was hard to say.
Look at her all charmed and stuff, rubbing on her little pendant.
I couldn't touch you. Tell me, baby, what were my words? All my tears run together down the path you choose to
Look at her, she typing the shit out that song, ain't she?
follow. Mr. Rollins, tell me, baby, what were my words? All my tears run together.
What a creep. Danny Rolling was executed in 2006. This was definitely something straight out of my nightmare for sure. Let me know if you guys ever heard of this case before. If you watched the end, thank you so much. Let me know what case you will want to see next. And I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.